Fair game.
Are we starting?
We're rolling.
Yeah,
We're
started.
Oh, we're starting.
Yeah.
Well, what a good-looking podcast we have here today. This is the Mama Tried Flat Out Friday podcast number
56.
51.
51. You see that? You're 51
There you go.
podcasts.
51st.
Do we win? Do we get a little
No.
something? An apple?
Ding, 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 ding.
50th you do.
Supply chain. The confetti's on back order.
All right.
All right.
Supply chain.
Yeah. The production intern that's supposedly
We're
ordered.
passing the buck to
It's like
the
it was
fake
supposed to be a
beer.
reveal
Yeah.
of something, and nothing happened.
Yeah.
Nothing popped.
Yep.
Well, we have
Oops.
here. This is the Bill Michaels episode. Bill Michaels.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, Bill Michaels, ladies and gentlemen.
Bill Michaels.
We're going to unpack who Bill Michaels is in just a little bit. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bill Michaels is known for many different things, and we're going to unpack each of them. Before we begin this, Mr. Michaels, I like to ask my partners here where their head's at. Scott's in a good mood? A
Yeah.
little chipper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Home from Sturgis. It's not a lot going on. Got to hang out with my lady.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
You know, I just spent all day I'm doing like 18 loads of laundry from all the people that stayed at my house for the 120th, who's been wadded up in my corner of my bedroom since then. It's just been great. Just like, unpacking the summer.
Yeah. It's funny that you say this because you got to zoom out a little bit. Last time we talked, when you and I were one-on-one, you said, we got to just stop doing all these other things. We can't be going to Sturgis and mini bike racing and going to Indonesia. We need to focus on our show. That's right, Scott. We need to do that. And then I can see you're unwinding because I'm getting texts about going to Japan.
Riding the Scott roller coaster.
Going to the war run in Indonesia.
Well, these are important events. I wouldn't consider a boonie bike race in a pick and save parking lot to be
All right.
on our schedule.
I would agree.
No offense to the
I would
boonie
agree.
bike racers of
Or
the
pick and save,
of the
for that matter.
pick and save. Exactly. There's certain things that we all agree that we love, right?
Mm-hmm.
International chopper shows being one of them, and Moon Eyes specifically, and the war run. Really, that was on our
war-
dream list.
The war, custom war.
Custom
wars in
war,
Indonesia,
yeah,
Bali,
not war,
right?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. You see they activated the Black Sand Beach?
Yeah.
Yup.
And it went really well.
Yeah.
Bill Michaels, we were talking about doing a race on the beach in Bali. We put some energy into making it happen, and they did it without us, and they did it really well with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
of course,
not like snaking or anything. It's just,
No.
it doesn't work out for us to get out there and back. And, they caught the optics of it and did a rad job.
yeah.
They also invited us to come there and
Yeah.
be with them.
Yeah.
So we just couldn't do it because of Sturgis.
Yeah.
So
Boo.
yeah. But anyway,
Sturgis was a good time, though.
it was a good time.
We experienced everything.
Yes.
Rain, wind, hail.
Yeah.
I took one right in a melon, about
Really?
an inch, hail ball.
No
coming back
way.
from Devil's Tower, yeah.
Really?
Coming down the hill, it looked like, I thought it snowed. That's how much hail
No
it
way.
Wow.
had fallen that day. It was the Tuesday that we were out there. We saw you guys. And I thank God we had some friends who drove out. They're not riders, so they wanted to drive and see it. So Kristen and I jumped on a bike. We were, you go over the mountain, you're coming down the hill, you can see it off in the distance, and it's black. And I told Kristen, I said, you know what, you better get off the bike and go get in the car. And I don't have any rain gear with me. This was one of those days, guys, where people say, hey, let's go do this. And it's effed up. But you're just like, I'm not going to be the SOB that says no.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, let's go. No problem.
Yeah.
As an
And
act of
I'm-
defiance.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the radar, and I can see rain everywhere. But out in Sturgis, you can't see the rain over you. It's really weird because of
Yeah.
the mountains. So we're riding over the hill. I told her she better go back and get in the car. So just as we made the turn into Devil's Tower, like the end of the world.
But
End
yeah,
of the
the
world.
storms out
Wow.
there, I don't
Right.
mess with them. Like if I see it coming, it's black, I'm on a motorcycle. Like,
Yeah. It opened up, and then it was rain. It was like not a major ordeal. It passed. But as we were coming back, I just said, stay in a car. Let's see what happens. The sun came out. I'm riding, doing about 55, 60. I'm starting to dry out. You're finally getting your crotch to where that doesn't feel like you're, wearing a sock over your junk. And I'm kind of like, this is great. And then I hear tink, 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 tink. And I came down the hill, and I'm like, oh, my God. So I'm trying to find where the water had grooved the hail to try to keep traction on the road.
Oh, wow.
And then I realized that was freezing. So I had to climb on top of the hail to actually
No
get some
way.
traction. So I'm coming through the hail. I finally get out of it, and then you hear it still kind of hitting a little bit. And then one hit my windshield. I thought it busted my windshield. It hit so hard. And just as I was kind of startled, I was like, damn. Then another one just boom, right in the head. So I pulled over. I was seeing stars.
Yeah.
And then I sat in the truck for about 20 minutes, and then we finally made it back and kicked our shoes off and built the fire where it had never rained at full throttle at that point in time on that Tuesday. So had beer, sat back, talked about the stories. So hell, I lived, and here I am.
You were the only one on a motorcycle?
Yeah. I told her to get off and get in the car behind us. So, yeah.
Chivalry.
Good move.
Well, hold on to that. Hold on. We're going to still unpack Bill Michaels. A lot to unpack. Warren, where's your head at real quick? That's it. I got it.
Like the picture off a Mad magazine. That's pretty cool.
Exactly.
That's where it is.
You look just like your son. Actually, your son does that expression a lot.
Yeah. Life is hectic currently.
All right.
Yeah. You want me to divulge, or are we just going to
Well,
move
I
on?
don't know. But I mean, if we have to edit it out, then maybe you shouldn't divulge. But are you okay? What's going on? Is there
Yeah, I'm
anything I
fine.
can do to help?
I mean, this
Whenever-
is therapy.
Yeah, whenever I go on trips, I come back to a bag full of stuff. You never know what's in there when you open it up, and there's a lot in this time, and I'm trying to climb out and balance everything up. And I always refer to it as juggling the balls. There's a lot of them, and some of the balls are bigger than the others, and I'm trying to push through.
I think there's a little Stacy theme here going on.
No, we got a lot of jobs and a lot of technical and complicated stuff that has to overlap with other people's work.
Sure.
And that gets to be pretty hairy because it's,
You have a small window to.
yeah, you have a small window and 50-50 whether or not your job can be done based on the other guy's job. And there's lots of moving and shaking in the field. And when you're coming with a truckload of stuff and 4 guys and you can't do what you're supposed to do and you waste half a day, that's a big punch to the balls, especially when you're packed up, 2, 3, 4 days of work that I'd lined up. So and I'm small and I don't want to use that much brain power. So it just it struggles. And then that carries into when I get home, I can't do anything. It's basically just have to be dad and cook. And so it's tough, but I made my own bed.
Patch. You're in a little hailstorm here.
Yeah.
Looking
We're
for
getting through.
traction.
We're getting through it.
When's the light at the end of the tunnel?
Probably, I'm going to make things a little bit, I'm going to make it temporarily better. We're going to play hooky and go swimming tomorrow just because I don't want to work in 100-degree heat. And so maybe like end of next week, maybe the following, we should be good. So hopefully we'll just keep pushing.
Well, thanks
you guys
for sharing.
Yeah.
That's how you get help. You share it. Yeah, and it feels good. All right.
Jeremy, where's your head at?
Well, hey, I just started my new job. I'm a high school teacher. Did you know this, Bill Michaels? I'm a high school teacher.
You had kind of told me a little
But
bit
I'm gonna
when we were at
sweeten them.
the Bud Pavilion.
Yes, and I love it. I'm a great teacher. Bold statement. But I have a new job. My classroom is in Veterans Hospital.
Pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah. So students they don't use school buses anymore. They use student-approved Ubers.
Interesting.
So these Ubers come, drop off kids. I got about 14 kids, and I'm going to find them work. We still are waiting for paperwork. You got to get a TB test, fingerprinted. You have to work in a hospital is difficult with your COVID vaccine proof and all of the medical, and then you have to work because you're working for the federal government. You got to do background checks.
Sure.
So I got 14 kids, and I do my 3-hour comedy bit. I'm nearing the end.
Running out of material.
I'm running out of material.
All the material you stockpiled over the summer is already
Well, my life,
already
I
gone.
have a 20-year career of creating bits. But 3 hours compressed uses those bits up, chews them up quick. My bits are good intermittently, like blue cheese. But when you have blue cheese and a fork and a pound of blue cheese, you start to get sick of it after a while. And I think that's what my students are doing to me. That's the negative. The positive is it's going to be a great semester, and I'm looking forward to working there. And to bring it around, that's why you're here, Bill Michaels. There's many reasons why
To
you're
taste
here.
your cheese?
Taste the cheese. I work at Veterans Hospital. I work right next to the Fisher House.
Yeah. Great place.
What's the Fisher House?
Yeah.
Fisher House is kind of a home away from home for military members, veterans, their families. So if you have a veteran or you're in the military and you're receiving care of a day or an extensive care, say as at the VA here in Milwaukee, where one of their prime concerns is spinal cord rehabilitation, bringing people back physical therapy wise, cancer wise. If there's amputations or need for physical therapy, then we house their loved ones. We house the family.
Sure.
And the cool thing about Fisher House is that it is, as opposed to many things governmental, it is a 5-star hotel for the families. And when you get there, when you're coming in, first of all, you can only use it if you're outside of 50 miles of Milwaukee. You can't use it if you're here because you're here. But suppose you're coming in for a spinal cord rehabilitation from, say, Kansas or Minneapolis or California. The last thing you want to worry about is I got to find my wife or my kids a hotel room, how much it's going to cost, transportation to and from every day, back and forth to see them. Do they need a rental car? Do they not? So you worry about. So we take care of all that.
Oh, that's right.
We put you right on the grounds. There's transportation back and forth that you can catch, and that way you're there as long as you want. There's a good group of volunteers who bring in food and do things, almost on the daily. But it's, like I said, it's like a 5-star hotel. You get your room, you get a washer dryer, you get a stint with your own portion of a refrigerator, a huge gourmet kitchen. There's a library, there's a dining room, there's a deck. The deck is cool because the back deck, part of it overlooks the VA, the other part, American Family Field.
Sure.
So you're close enough to see the lights on at night and hear the crowds cheer.
That's cool.
But you get to live there as long as you want. We've had people that have stayed 24 hours. We had one person that stayed over almost a year.
Wow.
Because their husband was in there receiving care.
Sure.
And the stories you get out of that, how I got involved is interesting because we were actually downtown at a restaurant. There was a guy very distraught sitting at the end of the bar, and long beard, looked like he was weathered. And here he was only 32 years old, and I would have guessed him for 50. And we started talking to him, and he had just gotten back from Afghanistan as an embed. So he couldn't really tell us what he did, but he just said, it's good to be back. But when he got back, he just met his daughter for the first time. Now she's going on 2 years old. So when he left, his wife was pregnant, and we started talking to him, and we were going to buy him dinner, and he said, I make good money. I don't need dinner.
Mm-hmm.
He said, but if you ever want to do anything for us, do something for the families, and especially for the kids. They never signed up for this. I did. And that got me thinking, hey, Fisher House had just come on the map in Milwaukee. We hadn't even broke ground for it yet. And there was a group of people that had come to me and said, hey, would you be interested in being a part of this? And so I said, yeah, I'd love to, because of that story.
Yeah.
So that's how I got involved in Fisher House. But that's what it does. And it's an expanse beyond that. When you go back to when the government shut down, and there is the tradition with any military family that, God forbid, your loved one is killed in action or killed overseas, the government will fly you to meet the casket at whatever Air Force base they're coming into. Well, when the government shut down, they quit doing that. They weren't paying for those flights.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody in the state of Wisconsin that lost someone or that needed help and assistance, we paid for.
Sure.
And there was, I think it was 3 or 4 families that it was during Afghanistan, the exodus in Afghanistan. So, and we had sent a few families to meet those caskets. So it extends beyond just 4 walls.
Sure.
And we really do call it a home.
Yeah.
So that's what it
great.
is.
Why
Super
do you? I don't know the answer to this. Why do you say we? What's your involvement specifically with the Fisher
Well,
House?
I'm on the board of directors, and I have been now. This is my third and final term. They extended terms. It used to be 2 term limits, and they extended it because of COVID, because we really couldn't do much of anything. But I was an ambassador for that when it came to charity and fundraising prior to being on the board. And I will be even after the fact. But there's 12 to 14 people that are on the board. We grew the board a little bit because there's a need in Madison, so we want to begin fundraising for a house in Madison. And the one thing about the Fisher House, which is so cool, is that we take a lot of pride in they call it dollars to cause. How much of a percent of each dollar is going to actually go to the cause? Nationally, it's over 90%. We're about 87% locally. And we don't have like executive directors or anybody that's making a salary. It's all volunteers.
Sure.
There are some expenses that we have to take care of here and there, but for the most part, it's just about every bit of your dollar goes into the house. But the cool thing about it is the people that I work with, and especially the financial advisors, are so good that if we weren't building this house, in Madison, which is coming up, and we're still trying to purchase the land for it because there's such a need out there, that they've done such a good job in governance of the money that the house would pretty much be sustainable. It really wouldn't need our help anymore, other than to okay and approve amenity adjustments, such as if a refrigerator goes out or something like that. They've been that good of stewards of the money that people have donated from this community. And we were one of the only ones in the country to have more than 50% of the money raised before we broke ground, which is spectacular. And that says something about the people here in the city.
That's great.
Cool.
The house is 100% donation funded?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what we do is we build it to the specifications of Fisher House Foundation out of Philadelphia. Zachary Fisher is the one that he was never in the military, but he wanted to do something, so he started this. So we build them, and then we give the keys to the VA and say, you can run it, you can have it, use it. They usually have somebody that, we kind of call like the den mother or something like that, but somebody that's the steward over the house as a part of the VA to keep it, copacetic with all the standards that they have.
Got it. Okay, this makes sense.
And then we turn it over. And
how many Fisher houses are there?
Last I counted, I think there were 68, but we've got 5 more in progress.
Wow.
So, and we hope to have 100 within a year or two.
That's amazing.
We just jumped into this podcast with 2 feet, by the way. We just jumped right in.
That's okay.
Is that all right?
That's okay.
Is it okay
Yeah.
with Proc is the question.
Yeah.
And I think we're about to get that answer.
Well, because there's a little bit of romance that develops, and we just jumped right in.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
all
We
hugging
just-
on each
yeah,
other. That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. I wanted to build up to that because that's an important. Because why don't we just finish this? So not only do you run this, you have a ride. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And we want to get the word out and help you get the word out about this. Why don't you tell us about this ride?
16 years ago, when I was approached about the Fisher House ride, I was actually doing it for Ronald McDonald House at the time because my son had used a Ronald McDonald House, so it was near and dear to my heart. And Fisher House had come to me and said, hey, we are going to do a ride ourselves. And my ride was the day before their ride. And my ride was much larger at the time. It started to grow. And so they came to me and said, look, you have the ability with your voice and the platform that we have to grow this and make it more known, so
visible.
to speak. And it's nothing against the Ronald McDonald House. It's just that the Fisher House dedicated so many volunteers and so many. They didn't just show up for a check. They said, we want to be a part of this and we want to help you grow it. So we started, the first one was 42 bikes 16 years ago. And last year we had 1,085 motorcycles. We had close to 1,600 people. And it has turned into a festival. And it's turned into this just massive, massive event. And, and every year it's, everybody knows Jesse James Dupree and how he sings and always calls it a family reunion. And I always borrow his words that it's a family reunion because it's the same faces that started with us, but then they bring friends and they bring friends. And we are now the largest, from what I'm told, I don't know how official this is, but we are now the largest ride in the state of Wisconsin. And from what I understand, we have been labeled by many on many of the biker chat rooms and such as the best ride in the state of Wisconsin, a must-do, so to speak. So, and we're proud of that because we try to add to it every year. So it's.
When is this ride?
It is always the Sunday of Labor Day weekend. So this year it's Sunday, September 3rd. And we had grown. Everybody knows Dave Hawk. Dave's long time down at MKE was with Beechwood Distributing. And Dave brought it down to MKE Brewing for years. And last year it was supposed to be 2 blocks of, roped off road that we basically bargained for with the city. And we ended up with about 9 blocks. And we made a lot of people. We pissed a lot of people off that were trying to go to work and couldn't get out of their driveways and such. So it was interesting because Bill Davidson had gotten wind of it, and some people with the Harley Museum got a hold of it and said, "Hey, we want to help you." So we talked with Erica Capagna down there, and everybody knows Erica and Bill and Tim McCormick, and they said, "Let's do this and let's do it bigger and better." And so some of the people that we've talked to and some of the people we've worked with, we've grown it. And this year we would love to break the record of 1,085 motorcycles.
Wow.
It's great.
Yeah.
Why do you pick 1,085? Because it's one more than last year?
No, we want more than 1,085 was the number last year. We want to. I'll take 1,100. I'll take 1,086.
Got it.
I'll take. You know what? I'll take 100. As long as they're doing it for a great cause and we know where the money goes, that's what matters.
Do people sign up in advance for this?
Yeah, the pre-registration is what's really cool because everybody does something. Well, if you pre-register, you get a T-shirt. Well, F that. T-shirts everybody's got a T-shirt. So we started putting packages together just from some of the access that I've had over the years with all the different teams and such. So this year we got a resort up north called Four Seasons Island Resort up in Pembine, Wisconsin. It's in the middle of a river.
I know
and
it.
an
Good
island.
people,
Yeah.
salt of the earth.
So they gave us a weekend. So we got a weekend stay there and champagne package and everything. It's valued about $700. We got whiskey donated from a bunch of different bars.
I
and
get
some
all this when I sign up.
well, you get a chance to win it.
Oh, okay.
So we've got a whiskey basket with about 10 different really high-end bottles valued over $2,000. And also we threw in a box of cigars from our guys out in Deadwood. They sent some stuff, and so did General Cigar, and with torches and snips and everything. And then there's the other one, which a week later, the Packers open up in Chicago. So my network, my radio station donated, my company donated 2 tickets to go see the Packers and the Bears. Plus, we're going to take you down to the Sheridan Grand Riverwalk Hotel, and we'll put you on the air to do the postgame show with me. So if you've ever wanted a radio career for a couple of segments, we're going to put you on the air with us. So that's one of 3 packages you could win just for pre-registration. So, and then we've got some really cool stuff at the end of the ride.
Right.
And some
I can
celebs.
still sign up.
Yeah.
I can still roll and sign up.
Sign-ups happen until 9 a.m. next Saturday. Yeah, Saturday the 2nd. Pre-registration. Because some people like to wait and see what the weather's going to be.
Sure.
You know.
Well, so let me ask you just a little bit of infrastructure, because this is, when you say this is a festival, this is an infrastructure on wheels.
Very much so.
So it's
Very much
what
so.
we do, but it moves.
Correct.
Can you imagine this? For 1,000 people, you need porta potties.
Yeah.
You need to call ahead.
I never had to order porta potties before, because we'd always landed at one of the Harley dealerships because they already had them, because Labor Day weekend was the rally.
Yeah.
Now they don't have the rally.
Right.
And we're hoping to benefit. We're either playing Russian roulette suicide, or we're going to benefit, because there's really not a lot going on this weekend, or that weekend of Labor Day weekend now.
Right.
There's a couple of things going on with some dealer events, but nothing like the rally.
Like it used to be.
So we're thinking people
Fill
are going to
that-
be
you
looking
wanna
for
fill
something
that
cool to
void.
do, so
Right.
we're going to fill that void for them. Absolutely.
Wait, what are some of the logistics of event planning, something like that? Like, what are the biggest challenges?
It's like herding cats.
Yeah.
It's not big things. It's a lot of little things. So
Right.
you got to work with the city, the sheriff's department, the Milwaukee Police Department. They shut the highway down for us
Oh,
for the
whoa.
first leg.
Wow.
And I'll give you something really special regarding that coming up here in a second. But so you work with the police department. The Milwaukee Fire Department's bringing 2 ladder trucks to hang the American flag over when we leave. You got a color guard. You got a bugler. You got a singer for the national anthem. And we were lucky enough this year that Ben Tajnai, who everybody knows is the Bucks singer, sang every national anthem through the playoffs and the championship, and then had 500 million people add to his page after he sang "We Are the Champions" for the Bucks celebration downtown. Ben's going to do our national anthem
Wow.
for us. So we got
He
that.
sings in an operatic style.
Yeah,
Right?
He's amazing. He agreed to come and be a part of it. Then you've got stagers. You've got all the people that have to take the admission, whether it's pre-registration or day of. You work with the museum because they're putting together a breakfast for everybody. The museum also offers a discounted ticket to go through the museum.
Okay.
So that's just before we even leave. And then I got a phone call a couple of weeks ago from Tim Duffy, and I think everybody knows Tim. Tim is the firefighter in that iconic picture riding the Harley Davidson into the towers on 9/11. Tim called and said, "I want to be a part of it." So Tim's riding from New Jersey to here
On that motorcycle?
on that motorcycle, and he wants to be a part of it. So
Cool.
he's going to join us.
Cool.
And then I was made the announcement last night. Then Friday night, I'm sitting at the bar, and I get a text, and I'm thinking, who's texting me late at night? It's Jesse from the band Jackal, and he said, "I'm there. Let's rock."
Cool.
How cool is that?
Yeah. That's awesome.
So he's coming. Obviously, you have sponsors that you have to deal with. And then last year on the ride, when we went down Loomis, we went to the Rock Complex in Franklin for our first stop. And when we were going down Loomis Avenue, there was a convalescent home, basically a hospice. And there was this gentleman, had a jacket on, a Vietnam veteran's hat. He was being wheeled down. And he could barely stand. And he stood and saluted the entire 8.5 miles of motorcycles, which was amazing. And it was funny because guys my size, we got off the bike and everybody's juiced after the first ride and they shut the highway down. It's so cool. But that's all everybody could talk about. And then you'd say, "Man, did you see that guy?" And then guys were turning around wiping their eyes because they're crying.
Yeah.
Well, this gentleman passed away about 5 months ago. So we bought a flag for his unit and we put it in the same spot. And this year we're going to salute him.
Cool.
So we're going to go by that way.
Wow, that's
Kick-ass.
powerful stuff.
So, and that's just the first leg.
So,
Yeah.
so let me pause then. You have a team. You have an 18-person team with an office, and these people are answering phones and making phone calls and making this happen
If
for you?
if you answer the phone for me, you'll be like the third or fourth person on my team. Yeah, it's. I've been doing it so long. I've always said, Kristen, who my girlfriend Kristen, who God love her, she puts up with all my neuroses. She does a lot of the legwork for me on a lot of different stuff, but for the most part, it's kind of like a house that's built. All you got to do is move into it. So we just move it year to year, and we just kind of check off all the boxes.
Okay,
you
got
know.
it, got it.
But
You have a
we've got
formula.
a lot of great people that know about it, that know every year. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going to be, and this is when I'm going to do it. So thank God for a lot of great people.
All
That's
right.
awesome. Yeah.
Well, here's my final question. Infrastructure. How is this a moneymaker? Like, how, you know what I'm saying? How is
Because
this making money?
everything is either sponsored or donated. So the riders pay $25 per bike or per beginning bike, and then for every additional poker hand, they pay an additional $25. So you figure you're already, if you got 1,000 bikers, you're 25,000 in, which is awesome, and it's one of the biggest fundraisers Fisher House has. But then what happens is you get sponsors that step up and say, "Hey, I'll pay for this. Here's a check for $5,000. Whatever you need, go buy it, and whatever's left, keep it." So you get 2 or 3 of those. You get a band like the Cheap Shots who are gonna play this year, and they're giving us a really, really reduced rate. Doing it for us and I know Josh, the lead singer, he's been great. Dave Barron, who owns Steel Tank Brewing, which is where the party's going to take place. Dave said, "Look, I'll pay for the tent, I'll pay for the stage, I'll pay for the PA. We'll take care of it." When you get a lot of that stuff taken care of and donated, and then the sponsors step up and say, "We'll take care of that," the rest of that money, and I've always said that 100% of the funds, whatever bikers pay, 100% of that will go into the account for Fisher House. And that's why people bring friends, because it's something that I've always said, you can drive past it, you can touch it, you can feel it, you can smell it. It's something that is there and tangible. And a lot of charities, you can't see that.
Sure.
Right.
And we say you can. So if you ever want to come and take a tour of it, we'll set it up. Come in and take a look around, see exactly what it is we do and where the money goes.
Sure.
Cool.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That was already a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
That was already a
Speaking
large
of unpacking,
case.
like Bill, what do you do? Who are
Yeah.
you?
Let's
Wow.
Start at the beginning.
Let's
Back it way
a
up.
little
How
bit.
far do you want to go?
Well, let's just start. Where were you from?
Originally, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, on the west side of town.
Is that how you know Hawk?
Yeah.
Really? That far back?
No way.
I believe my first sack as a freshman in high school was against him as a senior in high school. I believe. I'm not positive. He played for a
Did you
rival high
actually
school.
sack him as a quarterback, or just his
No,
team?
well, I think it was him, but I don't know.
That's right.
I couldn't honestly swear to it.
Sure.
But he was a hell of a quarterback for LaSalle High School. They were a rival to ours.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the GCL, the Greater Catholic League. And everybody knew Moeller. Moeller High School out of Cincinnati and Massillon High School out of Cleveland. 2 huge areas. But we were one of the rival high schools along with Dave. And I had come to town. And in 1999, I got hired by the Packers and WTMJ to come here and be a part of that broadcast. And Miller was always it. Miller in this town was it, man.
Yep.
And I got a hold of Dave, and Dave said, "No, I'm with Beechwood. We'd like to sponsor you as Bud Light." Well, at the time, my show was sponsored by Miller and Miller Lite. And there's a huge difference in entities working with Beechwood Distributing and Budweiser versus the Miller Lite people. And with Miller, you always had to go into this marketing meeting and sit in front of this big round table of all these different people who would judge you and your ideas, and they would determine whether or not they wanted to spend money with you. And so I came in and I said, "You know what? This is a football-crazy state. We should do a show called The Huddle. Every Monday night, we'll do it right before Monday Night Football, and we'll travel around the bars and we'll do this, and we'll get, we'll get audience. And plus, it's a great way to activate your accounts." And they said, "Well, I don't think it's going to work. Bring it back to us next year." So, okay. So I waited a year, came back, brought it up again. Now, I had been doing it, but I've been doing it in studio. And they're like, "Nah, it's just not something." I said, "Are you sure?" There was a pause. And I never forget the girl. The girl's name was Lisa and Dave. They were sitting there. She said, "Nah, it's not going to work." I said, "Okay." I walked outside, got in my car. I called Dave Hawk. Dave said, "Done. We bought it. Just bring the contract." We bought it. And we were together with Bud Light now 23 years.
Yeah.
23
Oh, wow.
years together. We've been together.
Awesome.
And you'd have thought that I killed the Pope if you go over to Miller. I'll never forget, somebody invited me to go see the Goo Goo Dolls one year at Summerfest, and they were playing on the Miller Lite stage, and they invited me up. And the brass from Miller was there. And you'd have thought I just got done shooting the Pope and peeing on his grave.
Really?
Oh, my God. And I'm like, you didn't want it.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like the girl you asked to the prom 40 times. She turns you down, so you ask another girl, and then she's mad at you. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I had a guy downtown call me and said, hey, are you cheating on your wife with this woman? And I said, no, why? And he's like, because there's no way she's this mad at you over a business deal. And I said, I swear to God, I never touched her.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you're nailing her. And I said, no, I'm not. I swear to God. I swear to God. And to this day, I don't think he really truly believes me.
Wild.
But that's how it went.
Well, so your history is through broadcasting.
Yes.
And you were the voice of the Packers talk radio for many years.
For talk radio, I did Sports Central for 12 years. I worked as the pregame and postgame host for the Packers Radio Network. I was originally hired to be on the field, to be the field reporter, but Ron Wolf, at that point in time when Larry McCarron, after Jim and Max left, Larry McCarron went up to the booth, and Ron Wolf didn't want anybody on the sidelines because he feels they give away too many secrets.
Okay.
So they said, well, we got to find a place for you now that we've hired you. So they made me the post-game show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget walking into Lambeau Field for the first time, and Bob Harlan bringing me
what
in.
year is this? This is
1999.
25 years ago.
1999. And they hired me. I got to know a few people at TMJ. And I was supposed to be here for a month and not do anything, just learn, you know. And they called me 2 days later, and Len Casper, who had been doing the show at the time, was sick. And I said, let's just go. Nobody even knew I was hired. So I'm walking in there like, you know, the producers are like, who the heck are you, you know? And I said, well, I'm here to do Sports Central. And the guy that thought he was getting the job didn't, and they made him my producer. didn't work. And I love Doug. Doug's a great guy, but it didn't work out at the time. But they said, okay, you need to go to Lambeau Field and meet Bob Harlan. So I went up, and Bob Harlan, I walked into the office. It was before the renovation. He said, let's go outside. And we sat outside, and he takes me through this tunnel and out into the bowl, and we just sat there. And he said, I just want you to look around and listen. And so I'm looking around, and you're looking at the Ring of Honor, and you're seeing, you know,
Is
all the
this
numbers.
during a game? Is no one?
No, there's nobody there.
Okay.
It's just us. And he said, you can hear it. I said, what's that? He said, you can hear the footsteps. You can hear all the guys that have played here. You can hear, you know, Tony Canadeo. You can hear Curly Lambeau. And he said, you can hear it. And that's the history of what it is here, and I want you to understand it, which was so incredibly cool. And then I went on to a great career.
I want to just pause. You told a lot of stories that I don't know. I don't think Warren has any idea. You know, he's from Illinois.
I was just I'm a little bit on my heels too. I don't really know that much about Green Bay Packers, so I'm a little bit like I'm following.
Yeah.
But it's
just
a lot. It's a lot.
I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. My mom and dad were huge Bart Starr fans because of his class. And then don't forget,
I mean, his class as a human or class where he graduated?
Human.
class as a human being.
Got it.
He was knowing Bart before he passed. I got to know him pretty well working on the Lombardi board. You cannot ever talk about people in the realm of class without comparing them to Bart Starr. He just exemplified everything that was good about being a human being. And so, you know, I always thought when people talk to me about this guy's a great guy, this guy's a classy guy, I always thinking in my head, how would he compare to Bart?
Bart Starr.
Because Bart's just that iconic in both on and off the field. But when you grow up in Ohio, and my dad respected Lombardi so much, and my dad loved Bart Starr. My mom did too. My mom was hardcore Irish Catholic, and my dad was German Catholic, and I'm an adopted child at 2 weeks, but my family background is 100% Italian. So all we knew how to do was pray to the Lord and drink, you know. So on Sundays, it was, you know, if the Packers were on, you know, that was it, man. We didn't watch the Cincinnati Bengals. We were watching the Packers.
Really?
So, yeah, growing up as a kid.
Wow.
So to then have a weird, ironic way of me ending up here, which was just fantastic.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I want to say that I have a romantic. I don't know if that's the right word, but
Is that a word?
is it? It's a word. I don't know if I'm using it appropriately. But your voice, because I discovered you in the '90s when the Packers were doing really well.
Yeah.
Brett Favre.
Yeah.
And your voice, it's strongly connected to that. Your voice is very soothing, very comforting to me. And I'm a bit of a fan. So thanks for coming out today.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. I didn't know that. You know what really gets me is I'll be in a grocery store or something, and somebody will come by and say, "Hey, are you Bill Michaels? And I'll say, yeah. And he'll be, 25 years old or 35 years old. And he said, yeah, I was listening to you when I was 8.
Yeah.
Wow. How old are you
cool.
now? And he's sitting there with his kids, and I'm like, oh, crap, am I old, man? I don't even appreciate it. I'm just like, oh, crap, I'm old.
Yeah.
Well, I dissect a little bit of what you do, because there is the questions and the way that you talk. So there's the words coming out of your mouth, but your diction and your cadence is very radio friendly. It's very friendly to the ears.
There is. I was lucky because growing up, my affinity was towards radio. And there were two guys. Al Michaels was actually the voice of the Reds for a couple of years back in the early 70s. And then he turned it over to Marty Brenneman and a guy named Joe Nuxall. And I loved baseball. That was my thing. And I loved baseball. And I always wanted to grow up and be a baseball broadcaster. And Marty and Joe had a way. It was always Marty and Joe on the radio. You knew exactly what they were talking about when they said it. But they had a way of talking to you and telling stories and weaving things in to make you want to listen. And I've always said that there's an art to that. Mm-hmm. Euchre's got it. When Euchre tells stories, everybody pulls over and listens. Now, how many times has he been in the middle of a story and you're already at the grocery store, at the gas station? You just wait until the end of that story or the end of the inning, and then you get out and you do. There's something to that. And I've always studied that. I just that's something that's innate in a lot of people. And I've always appreciated it. And the irony is that, before Joe passed, I got to know Marty and Joe really, really well. And to this day, Marty has now since retired. He's one of the original members of the Ford C. Frick Award in the Baseball Hall of Fame. But he'll call me. He'll say, I'm listening in Florida or whatever, and we'll talk. And it's so weird growing up when you got an idol that you think this is the guy I want to know or emulate, and then suddenly you grow older in your years and you're friends with that person. It's just so wild.
That's pretty cool.
That's
so
amazing.
wild.
How did you get into it? Was there broadcasting class in high school?
You really want a great story?
internship?
So
yeah,
I'm at Ohio State. I was going to do business, and I'm playing ball. And
You're playing basketball, or football. Yep.
Last 2 years of Earl Bruce, and I tore my knee up in the Scarlet and Gray game, which is like the spring game, and I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Defensive lineman.
Tight end.
Okay.
Yeah, tight end at the time. I was
some
a
hands.
little skinnier, and I could catch anything. I couldn't run with a damn, but I could catch anything. So, and that was back in the day when they used to give you the orbit. They used to put the 4 screws in your knee and then keep it stationary and everything. And so I was, I switched my major. I went into journalism, and there was a girl there that had recognized me. Her name was Janine Gallenkamp, and she had recognized me, and she was from a CBS station in Cincinnati, from doing some of the highlight reels and stuff in Cincinnati at the time. And she said, hey, we want interns. Do you want to come and work? And they paid internships back then. And I'm like, I don't want to do TV. So I went on about my business. About a month later, I'm still in the brace. I'm at an Arby's drive-thru at 1 a.m, effed up, just hammered, right? And my buddy, and it closed at midnight, and the drive-thru was open. And he said, I bet you they'll serve you because you're walking through with crutches. Drunk as hell. I get out of the car and I'm pounding. That was back in the day when they had the hoses. So I'm pounding on the hose, and you can hear the bell inside. Ding, ding, ding. And I hear this, hey, Michaels, get your big ass out of the way. And I just turned around, F you. And it was her. And she looked at me and she said, you want a job? And I looked at my buddy and I'm like, I'm drunk, pounding on the hose of an Arby's drive-thru at 2 a.m. Sure, I'll take a job. That's how I started. I started out as an assignment desk editor, and I was an assistant and picking out stories for the photographers and stuff to go out on. And then one night there was a Pizza Hut that was being robbed, and they wanted somebody to cover it. And it was about 11 o'clock, which in Cincinnati, the 11 o'clock news, not the 10 o'clock. So I said, I'll go out. I'll take a camera with me, and I'll go out and get it. Well, the guy took hostages. So it turned into a hostage situation. We were the only people there with a camera. So the guy that was the sheriff on the scene was a guy I went to high school with. And he allowed me to use the camera. But I said, anywhere the camera goes, I go. Because I kind of knew what I was doing. And I thought 2 things. 1, I'm either going to get a great story. Or 2, I'm going to get shot. And it's going to be big news. Either way, it's freaking awesome, right? So we crawled down by these weeds. And I had the camera. And they could watch this guy inside the Pizza Hut. Because they had locked a family in a cooler. And by the time I got back, they had given me a contract. They said, man, just what a job. And I didn't like TV, but it was my only real job. And I said, if I get a radio gig, I can leave, right? And he said, yeah, absolutely. And I ended up 2 weeks later, I got a radio job out in the middle of a little tiny town that nobody's ever heard of, but I wanted to do radio. So I went there and
they kind of showed you the ropes of you knew
Yeah,
some basics of
I
how
knew
it
some
worked.
basics, but when I went to Rushville, Indiana, and it was out in the middle of 5,000 people and 2,300 were Amish. They only used radios, and the biggest thing we ever gave away was a peanut butter parfait from Dairy Queen, and people would line up for this, and and I was coming from Cincinnati, so it was like Howard Stern coming to Milwaukee, and they're like, "Oh, stay away from that guy; he's got the herpes."
Right.
So, I did my thing there, and then I went to the Indianapolis 500, and I got involved with a company called Force One, which was France's version of ESPN at the time, and they needed an American color commentator, and I got that job by mistake, but I got the job, and I took that tape and parlayed that into a little more sports, but
Just keep building.
yeah, but you can't just jump into doing this. So I went and did rock radio in Columbus, Ohio. I got a call, and I was supposed to do an evening show. I
Just
showed
gotta-
up. I
like a
packed-
put in your work kind of thing, like
Yeah.
like earn your stripes.
yeah, that's where I met Jesse. Ironically enough, it
Oh, really?
comes full circle. Yeah. So I was showed up. I packed my car, and my dad helped me pack everything up and got me a condo, an apartment up there in Columbus, Ohio, because I kind of knew the area from playing up there. And I got there, and the station was ticking for like 48 hours. It was just ticking, and I'm like, what the? Did
What do you mean ticking?
What is that?
Just ticking, like the 60 minutes ticking. Tick, 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 tick. That
Like,
was it.
that's all they were
And
broadcasting.
it just kept saying on the hour, 48 hours till detonation, 47 hours. And I'm like, they changed formats, son of a bitch. I'm out of a job. I didn't even get a job, and I'm out of a job.
Wow.
And Sunday night, I kept calling the program director and calling the owner, and nobody would call me back. Sunday night, they called me and said, because I got hired to do evenings at a classic rock station. He said, no, we're going hard rock, P1. You're one of our 3 morning guys. Like, okay. So I got rid of the name Bill Michaels. I went to Wild Man. And it was Wampus, Wild Man, and Wolf Boy. And they said, grow out your hair, So within 8 months,
some rings.
I had hair to my ass. I was wearing tight black jeans with boots.
No way.
And the black T-shirt with the black and white check, herringbone, double-breasted coat, and long skull and crossbone earrings. And
Wait, what year was this?
This was like 93.
Fuck yeah.
So I was.
Did you know
Heck
anything
yeah.
about hard rock, or were you
Oh,
stuck?
I loved hard rock, but I just always wanted to do sports. But I'm
Sure.
thinking, this is cool,
Yeah.
You're introducing. My first gig was introducing Metallica.
Yes.
That's when they were doing the end around tour, and I fell right off the damn stage.
I'm gonna beat Scott to
No
it,
way.
but
Yeah,
Scott's gonna ask you about rock and roll stories. We
That's
need one.
okay. We had great ones. But when they did the end around tour, it was at the Nutter Center in Dayton, Ohio. And most stages, you come out from behind the curtain, you go out, you introduce, and then you leave. This one was a circular one, so you had to go up at 3 different points, and you had to walk the stage, the circle.
All right.
And they said, hey, when the lights go out, the place is going to go crazy. So you go up and you say the rules, no smoking, no open flames, and you got to say the hardest working band in rock and roll. And then you scream Metallica, you're going to hear the riff, because at that time it was the Black Album had come out, and they're playing Enter Sandman. That was going to be their first song. And so the lights go out, the place goes, I can't hear myself, and I'm just in awe. I'm like, holy crap, I'm going to meet Hatfield. This is cool, So I go up on a stage, and I'm like, no smoking. And you see everybody blow smoke in the air. Just weed is everywhere. And then I'm like, no open flames. That's before cell phones. So everybody's got a flame in the air, And
later.
ladies and gentlemen, the hardest working band in rock and roll. And then you hear, doom, doo, 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 doo.
Yeah.
And it's deafening. I can't even hear myself. And then you start to hear the drums, and I yelled, Metallica, and then he hits the drums, and the pyrotechnics go off, and I'm like, this is cool, and I'm looking around like, rock on, and I forgot it was a circle, and I ran off the back of the stage, and I fell right off, and on the way down, I hit the bike rack right in my chest, and I flipped ass over it. So now I'm laying where the people are, and I'll never forget some big fat girl in a leopard skirt, and back then they had 5-inch stiletto heels that were metal, and she's just stepping on me, and I'm like, get your big ass off, you're killing me. And that was my first stint
That's
with a
great.
cool band.
All right.
So I survived.
All right.
Yeah,
Awesome.
You admit that you drink a little bit of alcohol.
I do.
Yeah, I do as well.
What the hell state are we doing this podcast?
But you have a tremendous memory. You have a tremendous memory for names.
you know,
Do you hear me just talk? I say and I stammer. just remembering basic facts, but yet you can rattle off these names
You know,
from
it's
25
funny
years ago.
because the experience does that. Like when I meet people for the first time, I always look to Kristen because Kristen is a banker, so she remembers names. And she'll say, "Hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. What do you do?" She's the question person. And
She is really good at that.
"Hey, very much nice to meet you." Mm-hmm. And then we get into a conversation. And I'll look at her and I'll go, "What the hell was that name? What was that name?" You know? And so we're good about that. But I'm not great with names, but after like the second time, it's like, okay. I got it. I'm good like that.
You're a big dude.
Yeah.
They call you the big unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 6'5" in 6th grade.
Really?
I was 6'5" and 172 pounds.
And Warren, you're a big dude.
Sure.
When you go out, do you feel that people kind of want to take out the big dude? Or do you get, is there drama, unnecessary drama because you're the big dude?
It's more deferential, isn't it?
I've never really felt that. Maybe once or twice, but super random.
Because I think you kind of put an X on your back when you call yourself the big unit, no?
Oh, well, I didn't. It started that way. When I was in 6th grade, we had a really good basketball team, and I was our center. And when you got guys that are actually normal size, and you're setting picks for these guys, where are they hitting you? They're beating my junk up, and I was getting mad. We were playing in a national tournament, and my coach grabbed me by the shorts because I was set picks, and I would kind of move sideways. And he looked at me and he said, "You're a big damn unit. You stand right here." And my buddies all snickered. And, I'm a big unit. So that kind of became a thing. And then what happened was it faded a little bit, and then I started doing some radio in Cincinnati. I ended up coming back to town.
After the Wild Man.
Yeah. I left there. My son had gotten sick, so I quit, and I came back home. And so I started doing I did a little bit of TV for CNN for a short period of time, and then a friend of mine hired me at a country station. So I've done everything. I've done country, I've done rock, the whole thing. I did sex talk at the country station before that company finally bought a radio station, a religious one, and flipped it to sports.
Wait, hold on.
I thought I got past that.
That
was like you can slip one past the goalie,
Jeremy's family has a little bit of that in the. Didn't your wife own a wonderful
that's
store?
Another episode. Let's pull this out. Let's extract this here.
Yeah.
No, what happened was that they had started doing. That's when Dr. Judy and all them, Dr. Ruth.
Yeah.
Well, there was a woman out of Atlanta named Dr. Judy, and she was syndicated, but they brought the show to the country station. So 7 to 10, I would do the evenings, and then 10 to midnight was 2 hours worth of sex talk, and I was her producer. So I was taking calls, and it was weird, but one of the funniest times of my life.
Yeah.
For the stuff that people would call up and say they have problems with. And I can't even say some of the stuff here, but they would call up and they would just say, there was one guy that him and his boyfriend were messing around with fish and got a fish stuck. And I'm like, "So what'd you do?" And he's like, "No, it's stuck." And I went to doctor's advice, and I'm like, "Okay." And as he started to describe this, I'm laughing so hard. I'm like, "Dude," because he said it's my first time, and I said, "Man, I'd start out with a goldfish, And I'm talking crackers, so you can just flinch up and blow it out, So he describes this, and this guy is in anguish pain, and she's talking to him, and she says, "Do you need an ambulance?" I'm laughing so hard at this point on, you can hear the crash in the studio where the high chair that I was sitting on fell out from underneath me, and I said, "Yes, I can't breathe." Screw the hell with the guy on the phone. I can't breathe. This is killing me, But you'd get all kinds of questions, impotency and all that kind of stuff, and and not having attractions to your husband and whatever.
Well, how do you know any of this stuff?
I don't. They called up and I just put them on the line. And
You had to filter through some of the.
Oh yeah. Some of it was, at first it was such a. Back then, it was so unheard of.
It was very risky.
It was. It was incredibly risky and risque. And so you did have to filter out the really raw stuff, you know. But there was some stuff that they'd always told me, if there's a comical aspect to it, not that you want to make fun of people, but if there's something that people will be in their cars going, "No way," know.
Yeah. Do you have guidelines or somebody like looming over your decisions?
At first they did. But I had a pretty good sense of what I could tolerate. And if I can tolerate it, great. If I can't, and it's just too raw, it's not funny. It's not amusing.
Right.
And it's not something you want to listen to. You don't want to make anybody, like, turn you off because they're either disgusted or they can't handle it.
Sure.
Because it's not a horror film. You're legitimately trying to help people. So, but Dr. Judy was very straight faced. She was very likable, very soothing, and she had to be. And when you got a fish, but it was it was
You go into that as like I'm visualizing like barbs.
Head first.
Yeah,
Which was fine.
Barbs.
Coming back out, the gills opened up.
Yeah. And
Yeah, it didn't get all the way down past the head, but the gills opened up, and that was
wild.
Yeah, that was My aunt worked in an ER, so she used to tell my mom stories, and I'd listen. I'd hear about all kinds of stuff that would happen.
Well, that's where you heard Judy was a professional. And
Judy was a doctor
because you're when you're on the radio, your show is based on call-ins.
Correct.
Did you have a producer filtering?
Yes. Yeah, I got a guy now. I am in conjunction with Midwest Family Broadcasting out of Madison. So my producer is in Madison, and I am at home doing the show, and because I live in Waukesha. And but Grant and I are really on the same page. Mm-hmm. So he knows when to chime in. He knows when to talk. He's really good like that. He knows what's funny, what's good. But the biggest thing about taking calls is you have to have them thought provoking, to where other people will go, oh, okay, or hey, I was going to say that. That's what you want. You don't want the random crazies.
Sure.
All the time. Once in a while, I've always considered it like being like I look like this, so I hang out with uglier people. So I look really good in a bar, So every now and then you get the idiot, because then you can come back with something and you look really brilliant, That's kind of the rules that I kind of work with.
Sure. Yeah. Let me go a little bit deeper with the rules that you work with. Do you? Because you're the big unit, and let's say you make a bold prediction, Packers are going to be 3-12 this year,
right?
And you're at the grocery store. Are you getting heat?
Yes.
Are you a hated villain?
Not hated, no. But people will say, "Hey, I heard this. I think they're going to do this," and then what it becomes is a discussion as to why. And I love the discussions that make you think. There are people that I don't agree with. There are people that I'm not fond of listening to or reading. But if it makes you think, that's a good thing. Right. And I really believe that. I think the more information you can process, the more you can base your own hypothesis off of, makes you more educated and makes you a better person. And you have to be open to the other ideas. And that's kind of what I do.
And if you're like getting to the point where if people aren't approaching you in the supermarket, you're like doing it wrong. You want to get emotion, or
you either want emotion or you want them to say
to act
to say, man, I agreed what you said, and I get a lot of that, which sometimes is scary because of my own mental makeup. But there are times what gets people more than anything is when I go off. And short of dropping the F-bomb, I go off. It's unfiltered, it's passionate, it's what I believe. And that's a big thing in doing this, that there's sustainability there, because if you don't believe in what you're doing, you guys do all of this for a living. You guys do the bikes, you do the Flat Out Fridays, you love this, there's a passion for this. You're not going to all of a sudden, be the best guy deciding what pieces of wood are going to be put onto the pile at Home Depot.
Right.
That's not your passion. So this is what I do. And I grew up in a family which, if you had a passionate argument, you made that argument. My dad was the ultimate decider, but you made the argument.
Sure.
And so I go off, and sometimes I go overboard, but it's passion and it's what it is. So I get more response from that than just throwing out the statistics of what Jordan Love did and how I think he looked.
Yeah.
But you also have to have a depth. You have to have another level. And that's what people appreciate, is that if you can make them think and go, I didn't know that, and they learn something, that's you've done your job.
I appreciate your objectivity, that you've used facts. That's your brand. You could be a shock jock, if you will.
Yeah.
And make outlandish reports, which are common these days.
Yep.
But you've always kept it cool. And you said, I said this, tell me I'm wrong. That's been your brand. I cut you off, though, Warren. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, and keep it short, because I watched captions on the TV. That's about as far as my sports go. Is Jordan Love going to stand up to the hype?
My answer to that has been, I've always thought
Sports Talk
it was
Radio here.
right. I've always thought it was wrong.
Sports Talk Radio.
Wrong guy, wrong time. The timing of it was crap. However, if he's better than average, and you put a good defense that's usable around him, and the parts are around him, yeah, he can stand up to hype. The big thing for Jordan Love, any quarterback, is when you need to make a play. That's what separates the average, the above average, and the great from the below average. When your team needs you and you have to, you say, look, you go do this and I'll get you the ball.
Right.
When you can say that with confidence and deliver, that's what makes you on that upper echelon of good to great. And Rodgers did that for a good portion of his career. Towards the end, there were some questionable decisions that I didn't agree with. And I made my thoughts known. But you look at guys like Patrick Mahomes, when he's going down, he's got a bad ankle, he can't run, but he goes into the game, and you hear him on NFL film say, you do this, just get open. I'll get you the damn ball.
Yeah.
And he makes that play. That's when your team needs you.
Sure.
That's what your leader is. So can he do that? We don't know because he hasn't won a game yet.
Yeah.
But you hope that he can.
Sure. Cool.
Wait, I had a question.
It's okay. You don't have to ask me.
I wanted to talk about how you talked about shock jocks. I don't even know if that's still a thing. Obviously, there's trends in radio and where is radio today? Where was it 5 years ago? Where do you think it might? I mean, I know it's
It
big.
has changed drastically. I mean, remember it was supposed to be completely out of cars when Sirius XM took over, when it was Sirius and then XM, and that was supposed to make it obsolete. I think music radio has had its ups and downs because of the availability of Spotify and Apple and all that stuff. But there is always going to be a place, and I firmly believe this, and that's not because of what I do. It's just I believe there is always a place for local information, for something that you like. I'm lucky enough to be in a state where when I had the vision to build the network years ago, and it other than the farm network, it had never been done. It had been tried, but it had never been done successfully. When I looked at this and I said, you know what? In Ohio growing up, people in Cincinnati couldn't give a crap about people in Columbus, and Columbus couldn't give a crap about Cleveland. And everybody hated everybody. This state, when I would travel with the team, back when I was working with the Packers, you'd be in Arizona, and you'd say, hey, where are you guys from? Wisconsin. And then you'd say, oh, what part? And it'll be Appleton or Dells or whatever, And it just hit me. It's like, it's just one big state that just believes in the Packers and believes in the Brewers.
Right.
So I said, we can do this. So when you talk about radio, there's always an interest in local. The music industry, what can be mimicked in podcasts from other places, from people that live in California and such, that information side of things, that's a du jour. That's your buffet. You can go get it anywhere. But local talk, I think, will always have a place in anybody that wants to be informed and stay up to date as to what's going local in their area.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Let me use that to segue to my final section of what you're known for here. Of course, your sports history, working with the Fisher House, doing this motorcycle ride. But you also have successfully transitioned from radio to podcasting.
Yeah.
Can you give us some tips?
It's interesting because they always say it's in the headlines. It's getting the clicks to begin with. The big things that were told to me were, one, authenticity. Whatever it is, be passionate.
Okay.
Have a great take.
Check.
The second thing was whoever writes your headlines, always make it something. That people want to say, hey, wait a minute, I need to take a look at this. And then it's just the harping on the daily of disbursement. I try to post. Back when I was with a different company, they had people that just studied social media. That was it. That's all they studied. And there's algorithms to social media, and you got to stay up on those. And there's certain things that carry weight. You take a snippet of this and you put, hey, this particular segment was, and then you discuss, sex talk radio with a fish, and then you put it out there in a snippet and then say to hear the full interview here. So you put them on every platform you can possibly grab them. The problem is, for me, is I don't have enough staff to be able to do everything I need to do. Some of these shows that you see that are unbelievably popular, they started out, they got a little bit of traction, they became a niche, and then all of a sudden they had a staff of 10 that's all they do is cut and edit and social media and post, and that's how you grow, So it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, what's going to come first. So this here is something you guys are really good. I've watched them now. I've enjoyed them, and you're really good and passionate about it, and that alone will bring people in.
Sure.
And then after that, it's just sometimes it's luck of the draw. Yeah, sometimes it's just whether or not you get some traction. You get lucky, you get some sponsors behind you, and suddenly there's more money to put into it. And I was lucky there. Some people that the company that I work with was very gracious in saying, hey, if you can sell something, go sell it for yourself. But what I do is I also incorporate every sponsor I bring in to Fisher House. So it's not only are you going to be a sponsor of the show or the podcast, you are also going to be a sponsor of my cause. And if you don't believe in my cause, don't worry about sponsoring me. I'm good.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things is I've got to keep 20 sponsors every year. They pay a certain amount of money. That's it. They get nothing but live on-air mentions every day. And they believe in the same cause that I do, which makes me passionate about that.
Sure.
And whether it's frequently, heading into bars or restaurants or certain services that we use, I use them all. I personally work with them all. And when you start to get them behind you as well, you just kind of start to write your own ticket. Not that it's that easy, but at least then you're working with people you like and respect. They're working with you because they like and respect what you do. And it's not necessarily always about the content. It's about the relationships of the content.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things that I work with.
Yeah.
All right, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
A philosophical
good
foundation.
advice.
Word to the wise.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, tell me this. We haven't mentioned much about motorcycles. What's your relationship to motorcycles?
God, as a kid, I had a Raleigh chopper. Do you remember those?
Well, it was a pedal.
It was a pedal, but it looked like a motorcycle.
Right.
It had a gear
Oh,
shift.
yeah.
It had the gear shift in the middle.
And I think the frame was open.
Yeah.
It had two.
Yeah, it had two down tubes. That's
Two
right.
down
I had one of
tubes,
those
right?
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had
The
a
sissy
Raleigh.
bar and the little
And
front
if
wheel.
you ever accidentally grabbed the front brake too hard and you went forward with that stick shift that's stuck up in the middle, man, it snagged you like
Was it
nobody's
two?
business.
Was it one for the front wheel and one for the back wheel shifter? Right.
I had one. It was a 3-speed.
Okay.
I had one, and it was black, and it was badass.
You got it new.
And got it new, and I ended up stenciling the words Harley Davidson, and I spray painted them in orange paint and put it on the side of that seat, that big black leather bananas looking seat. Man, I love that thing. And then as I got older, I didn't ride right away when I was in Columbus, but when I came back home, I wanted to ride. So I went and got my license.
And home is Cincinnati.
Home was Cincinnati at the time, and I got my license, and I had bought a Harley at the time, a small, starter bike, a small Sportster, just to kind of zip around on. But I was there all of about 6 months, so I ended up selling it. I moved here, and I was working with Kirk Topol from Howell's Harley Davidson at the time.
No, Kirk.
And yeah, Kirk's a great guy, and I never wanted a motorcycle, but a motorcycle. I didn't want a road glide or street glide or bag. I wanted a Dyna, man. No windshield, no music, no nothing. Take it in the face, take your glasses off, get the bugs off, and keep going, man. And two things happened. One was the bike needed a little bit of work, and I had my ride coming up. And this was after we had ridden in the 100th anniversary. I rode with Gene Davidson in the antique bike ride out in Oconomowoc, and I loved it. I was just hooked. And but the bike needed a little bit of work, and my ride was coming up, and so they put me on a road glide. And I'm like, screw this piece of crap. I don't want anything with music or anything like this. And I turned the music on. I'm like, pretty nice, man. And then a buddy of mine, God loved Carmelo Fazzari. He called me from Calderon Club Restaurant up in the North Shore, and he called me up and said, Billy, I need to talk to you. I said, what's up? And he said, come here. And Carmelo is a big guy. His brother used to say he was a blue M&M short of 450. He's a big guy. And God loved Carmelo. And he called me and he said, come over. So I went over and we're eating spaghetti. And he says, no, I was eating spadini. And he says, I need to be honest with you. You look like one of those fat-ass Texas twins on a moped. Get a real bike, brother. So I said, okay. So I traded that in. I bought a road glide. I've been a road glide guy ever since.
It's a good friend.
That was it. Yeah.
That's a good friend. Yeah.
Yeah. Being 6'5" and close to 3. At the time, I was 412 pounds.
Damn.
So I was huge. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was huge. I got huge when I first got here. And I had a back injury and I was in a car wreck and everything, but I still rode the bike, man. But I was like 400 pounds. And
Jesus.
he's like, dude, you look like a fat Texas twin on a moped, man. Brother, buy a real bike. So I bought a road glide right after that.
I remember the Texas twin. That was in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the
That's
largest
right.
brothers.
They were
or
both
something,
like
largest
800
twins.
pounds riding
Yeah,
mini
that's
bikes.
right.
Yeah.
I forgot about
The
that.
scooter
Yeah.
is stuck
Their
up
ass
their
was
rear
dragging
end.
around. You couldn't even see the bike, man. It's like a futon with feet and a wheel on it.
All right. Well, how are we doing on time?
We hit.
We've hit.
We've hit.
Okay, we've hit. Well, thanks, Bill Michaels. Thanks for
Yeah.
spending
Yeah,
time
man.
with us
This is
talking
great.
about motorcycles
Wait,
and
wait,
podcasting.
so how
Oh.
can we, for the audience out there, who I'm sure has enjoyed listening to you talk, how do they find you?
Just Google Bill Michaels.
Yeah.
You can find the website, which is simply thebillmichaels.com. If you go to YouTube and watch the show every day, it's just youtube.com/Bill Michaels Show. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. The motorcycle ride is actually facebook.com/Big Unit Poker Run.
Okay.
We've got about 1,700 followers there
Okay.
and faithful followers. And if you want to be a part of the motorcycle ride, you can find it there too.
Cool.
Wonderful.
Right on.
And we'll see all you guys on Sunday, September 3rd.
Yeah, for sure.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
All right. Well, thanks,
All right,
Bill.
thanks, Bill
All
Michaels.
right. Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right.
Good job.